And now we want to move to the next part of the agenda, which is an experiment that we are very excited about. And we have a panel led by Loren Feldman. Yep, why don't you guys head on up there. Loren joined Forbes as senior editor of Forbes Entrepreneurs coverage online, effective January of this year. In his role, Loren manages Forbes' Entrepreneurs vertical on Forbes.com, where they develop and edit content for Forbes magazine and oversee contributors on this topic. Most recently, Loren was a small business editor at the New York Times, where he was responsible for developing a web portal but focused on small business and entrepreneurship, emphasizing user engagement and social media. And previously, Loren was editor at Inc.com and deputy editor at Inc. magazine, and he served various roles at different magazines, including editor-in-chief of Philadelphia magazine, executive editor of George, assisting manager editor at Money magazine, and senior editor for the American Lawyer. Loren received a BS in economics from the University of Pennsylvania, the Wharton School. And one of the popular blogs on the New York Times was a blog series by Fred Warmbier, who's up here. Fred, raise your hand. And Kelly Allan. And Kelly's the Deming Institute Advisory Board Chairman and works closely with me and led the first Deming Institute seminar that Fred attended. Travis, who's also up on the stage here, attended that very same seminar and will be writing a blog series for Forbes magazine. So what's happening today is Loren's going to lead an interactive discussion with both the panelists and you in the audience and on a variety of different subjects. And what I'm going to do is turn it over right now to Kelly Allan to talk a little bit more about what was going on and how this works. So Kelly?
Thank you.
Take it away.
Am I okay on the mic? I guess so. Just a little background on Fred and Travis. One of the things that we want to do here is to have some entrepreneurs and be able to talk about system of profound knowledge and Deming management method in terms of business owners and people who start businesses. So Fred runs a business out of near Cincinnati, Ohio. And his introduction to, you're about a year into your journey, I think, for Deming. Travis, about the same. Travis runs a company in Columbus, Ohio called Fitness Matters to Us. They both are experienced folks and had learned some things about the traditional way of management just by being in organizations that were managed in the traditional way. So when they started to learn about Dr. Deming's teachings, they both became really intrigued. Fred has a strong background in figuring things out, an engineer's mind, I guess I would say. He loves to figure things out and tinker with things and make things happen. Travis has his doctorate in physical therapy, and his business also does personal training, muscle activation technique, Pilates, as well as physical therapy. So anything else that
I think that's good.
Okay, so I will turn it over to Loren, and the PDSA begins. The Plan, Do, Study, Act experiment begins.
I didn't realize what an experiment this was. That's kind of makes me a little bit nervous. But when I was at Inc. magazine, we used to do a lot of focus groups. We'd talk to business owners and ask them, what are we doing that's working? What are we doing that's not working? What do you want from us? What do you not want from us? And we got one answer in particular that I've always remembered. One business owner said to us, well, I'll tell you what I don't want. What I don't want is to be told how to run my business by a 24-year-old kid writing for a money-losing publication. Believe it or not, that was eye-opening for some of us at Inc. magazine. But I've always remembered that since then, and it's really kind of guided what I've tried to do, whether I've been at Inc. or the Times or now at Forbes. We've tried to focus, instead of looking at the rock star successes that you often see profiled in the media, we've tried to do stories kind of from the trenches. We want to find people who are willing to share their ups and downs, tell us what it's really like trying to run a business. And that's been very rewarding. It's also a little bit difficult because what it means is you're reliant on finding people, generous people, who are willing to share those stories. And happily, there are quite a few of them, and we have two great examples of that right here today. At the Times, where I edited a blog called You're the Boss, I met Kelly, who introduced me to these folks and brought them to us. We started with Fred. Unfortunately, I left the newspaper before we got a chance to get to Travis, but he's going to be joining us at Forbes very soon. But Fred is just a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Someone who understands that there's a lot that can be learned from your struggles. And he was willing to share those struggles at the Times. I believe we got started with an interesting narrative where he was telling us about how he one day discovered that he had a delivery due of parts that he was supposed to finish that was way behind schedule, and suddenly was looking at having to do way more work in way less time than they anticipated. And I think we put a headline on one of the first posts, something along the lines of, "Who's responsible for this mess?" That's not the answer he gave in the Times. What was the answer you gave in the Times?
Me, yeah.
And why was that?
Well, the owner of the company, ultimately I would have responsibility, and it wouldn't be professional to blame who I really wanted to. But it's just awkward to have to get into situations that you're under a deadline, your customer's relying on you to get something, and it becomes overwhelming when you have a little bit of knowledge and you realize we're really not ready for this. It's incredibly humbling, especially when you've been in business and you've had some success, and that's where Deming and Kelly and writing about it was very helpful, because we were able to isolate some of these challenges and say, okay, what's really going on here? We waited till the last minute. We know that. Is it Joe's fault? Is it Ed's fault? Well, ultimately it's my fault, but then we look at things and we figure out, well, all right, what are we going to do here? This is a mess. and you're right about it. And those are the truth. And those are things that they happen in my business. I don't know if they happen in others.
Can you tell us just quickly, what was it that you identified? Why was it that these parts were so far behind schedule? What did you have to change to make sure that wouldn't happen again?
When Kevin got up and showed a picture of the pond and he talks about systems, we did not have robust systems in place. We had the Deming way of thinking and looking at the four tenets of thinking this is a system, and we have to run this as a system. And so in this situation, we're thinking this guy's taking care of it, this guy's taking care of it. We have sayings at our company, and again, it's very humbling to have to talk like this. We're overwhelmed and we're overworked. And we're a successful company, but that doesn't take away the fact that when you do 25 to 40 jobs a day, 600 to 800 a month, it's tough to keep track on all of them. And then as we started studying, and that's kind of a unique concept in my business, PDSA study, it even became more overwhelming, because you could say, the challenge here was we have spots on the parts. It's for a major electrical company, and our supplier had some issues as well, but they all become my problem if I don't manage them properly. And so are the parts bad when they come to us? Is something in our system causing the problem? So you start looking at the variables, and there's tons of variables here. And our company wasn't built on systems thinking, so we really didn't have, Kelly brought terms to my world, robust processes. joy in work and things like, and those aren't things you think about when you're a plating company in the Midwest trying to get work done. But they were starting to come to the surface. So as we looked at this and you ask, well, what, we thought it could be something in our system. We start breaking down every component of that. Unfortunately, by writing about it in the Times, someone sent a response to our blog and said, are you x-raying the parts before they come in? No, but we did have access to a microscope with it. We could take pictures of the parts. But keep in mind, this doesn't happen overnight, and this is Tuesday, and they're visiting us Friday. So stress goes up. They say with good systems and those sorts of things, quality goes up and costs go down. But what they don't understand is in the absence of those things, stress goes way up. And so that's overwhelmed, overworked, high stress, makes for a not fun experience. Not much joy in work.
Travis, your blog posts haven't run yet, but I've had a chance to read them, and they will be up at Forbes.com as soon as Kelly gets his act together. But perhaps you could, I think in your case, we're starting with a challenge you're facing where you had a surprise one morning. You found out that a key employee was going to be leaving. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, we have one of the services we offer is a specialized area of physical therapy for women's health, and not a lot of individuals certified and specialized in that area. And have been working with her and with Kelly on how we position ourselves in the market systematically, messaging-wise, and have been really successful at that process. And had a meeting with her to work on our next steps, our next PDSA and messaging with physicians. And it turned out to be a meeting where she told me she was moving to Cincinnati, down to your neck of the woods. And I was not ready for that. So we had to start putting in place. So the positives we've learned from that is our systems of going about running that business, messaging that component of our business was in place. So I didn't feel as high of a level of stress had I not had some of those systems in place, but I still had to find the next team member. And that was very stressful. So we had started the process already of interviewing individuals. So the positive that we've seen now that we're further down the road from the...
Could I stop you for a second there?
Sure.
You said you'd already started the process. Even before she said something to you,
Yes.
you were already looking. Why was that? Why were you looking for people before?
We knew we were at risk of only being one deep in that area because it was so specialized. We had identified that as a risk of if this person leaves our team, we're out of business in that area, and it's a key component of our industry, of our business. It's a feeder to the rest of our system. So we'd identified that as a risk, and we'd already started conversations with other specialists in that area. And fortunately, we had done that. We had looked ahead and understood what the risk was to our system had the one piece left.
Gotcha. Fred, you mentioned that you got an interesting comment from someone who read one of your blogs, which leads me to ask you, you revealed a lot in the blogs. At various points going forward from where you left off your story, you talked about a client that came to you, suddenly wasn't able to pay. You had parts ready to ship to them. You had another client that was objecting, wasn't sure you were doing their parts the way they wanted them done. Turned out the problem was on their end, not on your end, but still you had an issue there. You actually got to the point where you were nervous you might have to lay people off, and you wrote about that possibility. What was it like sharing this publicly? Was that did that go the way you expected it to? Were you glad you did that, or were there moments when you wondered, why am I telling the world what we're going through here?
No. I think that I'm willing to be honest about these things, and GM and the ignition switches, it's not unique to have these challenges, and this is my life, and I'm not embarrassed of it. It's awkward at times. I'm not ashamed of it. I had a guy that owed me $250,000 and wasn't going to pay. This is going on right now. It's not going to bankrupt me. It's not going to put me out of business, but I'm willing to share it because it's not unique. And so if you're gonna be in business and you're gonna go through these experiences, when I started my metal finishing company, my first order was to deburr 69 million fork bolts for General Motors. So it was a $1.6 million contract, and I'm in my early 30s. I went out and bought a building for it, I bought equipment for it, and within 3 months they canceled the contract. End of story. So again, it doesn't matter what business you're in, these things are gonna happen. There's gonna be variables, and so I don't have a problem sharing with it because it's the fork in the road, and it's what are you gonna do? So in the case of the GM case, I started thinking, okay, well, what else can I do here to make this work? So it forces me to think and look at other alternatives and options, and I call it the fork in the road. I can be pitiful now and blame GM for my woes, or I can go out and find something else to do and make a success of this, which is what we chose to do. The fact that the customer wasn't paying us, it was a fork in the road, and there's a whole lot of options that you can use when you have someone that doesn't pay you. And so by writing about it and talking about it, I was able to look at some different options. And does that make sense?
It certainly makes sense to me. And I certainly don't want to talk you out of that position, which might cost me my job.
Actually, they've paid in full and their business has doubled.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. But I do have to say, I have these conversations with business owners a lot, and they often stop at a certain point and say, are you nuts? I can't write about problems I'm having getting paid or the possibility of laying people off. I don't want people who might come and hire me to be worried about whether I'm going to be in business. I don't want employees to worry about whether they're going to have their jobs. Why weren't you worried about that?
I'm not insecure. Honestly.
But talk about the communication piece and how you approach that
Communicating
with your staff and,
Yeah,
and how you brought the customers into your organization.
Absolutely. These are all opportunities, really. And again, they mask themselves in other ways. So for example, when somebody can't pay you, then you have to look at Plan B. So it allowed us to bring some key people in and say, okay, well, now this is our company today. And I actually took 6 people with me to visit this customer to discuss. They were saying they had quality issues, and when we get down there, I mean, we could go on forever, but it was very awkward. So we get in the room with these folks, and they're beating us on quality and beating us up on quality, of course. And then at the end, I said, by the way, there's a few invoices we'd like to get paid for. And they said, well, no, we can't pay you, and we don't know when we can pay you. So I've got 5 or 6 guys with me that are hearing all this, and okay, that's fine, I don't know what to say. So then we back off, but it allows us to go back, and then we have a meeting, and we are able to discuss this as a team. Okay, well now, let's take all this revenue out of our company, and let's figure out what our company's gonna look like and how we're gonna run in the absence of this revenue. So we go through those exercises, and again, it's utilizing the Deming methods. We're studying our future without this company. Again, when you're in business, don't give yourself the option to fail, and then you'll always find ways to work around things. And does that answer that?
Yeah, but you also, you started to talk to the customer in some ways that they understood that you were thinking differently from other vendors of theirs.
And again, it sounds odd, but I always think, okay, how do I want to come off in this negotiation? And so I have choices there as well. And then after thinking about it, I felt I am not going to be a dick. Excuse my language, but I'm not gonna keep your parts. I have no interest in that. That's going to make me the person I don't want to be. And so I called up the owner of the company and I said, Carl, this is hard for me. It's awkward. I'm a small company. This is a ton of money to me. And but I'm not going to keep your parts. I have no interest in that. You're a good company, I know it, but I need to be paid. And you know, we talked candidly, and he said, you know, this year is as good as last year was. This year is worse. I went from 5 million to 25 million. People aren't paying me. Da 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 da. And so we got some communication going, and this is odd because we lost the business for a while because they still had the work coming in, but they weren't getting paid and they hadn't figured it out. And I really did not, I was not going to allow them to get the receivables up to us any higher. So they sent the business to somebody else, and fortunately, and this is why business is so great and fun, they had quality issues, and so, but they were paying us, and I think by being professional and being honest, and even if the guy said, when I called him and said, I'm not going to pay you, and da 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 da, I'm still not going to be a jerk to him because that's not who I want to be. It's going to hurt. It's not going to be fun, but I'm going to survive, and so then they slowly start coming back to us, but. And then 3 months, 4 months passes, and they're starting to pay us much better. And then we start getting involved in them, and then he says, "Oh, I'm now selling these products this way, and they pay me in 30 days." And so now and again, what's exciting is we're competing with a major vendor in Virginia, and we're in Ohio. And so this is a company with 300 employees. We have 25, and I love that. And so there's always advantages for us. Now, some people might not think that. And so our quality is higher than theirs. And so then he calls and says, you know, all right, we've paid you off, and he thanks me. He gives me a heartfelt thanks, and this is a good old boy, and it's really kind of awkward but nice. And then because he's thanking me, thank you, intrinsic motivation, I'm paying you, but also thank you. And then the business is growing, and now it's very robust.
One of the interesting things is when we posted that particular story on the blog, Fred had decided, he was trying to decide at that point how he was going to handle this situation. And so we asked the readers, should I ship the parts that we've already run for this customer knowing that we're not going to get paid? And the outpouring of comments of telling Fred that he was crazy to ship those parts. But what Fred had been reading about and thinking about in terms of the Deming philosophy is that customer had been a part of his system, and he wanted to keep that customer as a part of his system. And one of the other things that happened then is when they went to the customer to show that the quality issues were coming in the door to Fred's, to Finishing Technology, from another supplier of the customer, and showed them the flow chart and the processes and the PDSAs, the Plan, Do, Study, Act experiments that was going on at Fred's company, they didn't quite know what to make of it at first. This was a very different way of thinking about business and running business, and as Fred's quality has gone up over the last year or so, it was good quality before, he has a prosperous business. But as he's seen quality go up and costs go down, there seems to be now an attractiveness. They don't know quite what he's doing over there and what his people are doing over there, but they like it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Travis, I'm curious. I hope this talk about the risks of blogging are making you nervous. Are you still with me?
I'm here. I'm good.
All right, that's good to hear. Another issue that I know you're going to be dealing with in your posts coming up, in fact, I think you actually say that someone objectively looking at the economics of your business would think you'd have to be insane to go into the business you're in. And perhaps you should explain it. You're in the fitness business, but you're not a gym,
right.
And you're reliant on rates being set that are kind of out of your control for the services you provide. It's not as easy for you as it may be for some other businesses to affect what you get paid for what you do.
Correct, especially in the insurance aspect of what we do for the physical therapy piece. It's a set rate with insurances, and when we're competing in the larger market of the big health care systems, and they typically have a reimbursement rate for the same service that can be up to double what we're able to negotiate, being a small fry on the block, so to speak. So that really reinforces the need for us to be systematically organized in a way that we can be highly efficient and effective at what we do, because we really are, in a lot of cases, being reimbursed at half of the rate on the insurance side of the house of what the major competitors in our area are. So I guess you would have to be somewhat crazy to try and compete in that realm.
Are you at all nervous about sharing that information?
No, to kind of Fred's point in preparing for the process, it's actually learning for me as well. So as we have to work through and put on paper what we're dealing with, you can't hide it. You have to get right out there and be ready to share it with who you're going to be talking with, which is a lot of readers, and kind of expose yourself. But that's the only way you really, in my opinion, can learn and take yourself to the next level is here's the issues we're dealing with, here's reality, how do we go about continuing to be successful in this reality, and share it and hopefully get some feedback from a lot of readers.
Have you discussed this with your employees? Do they know this is coming?
They do not know that we're going to be sharing this yet. So that'll be exciting when I share that information. And I think they'll be excited about it. They've been involved in the process with us. Everybody on the team now knows what PDSA means, and they're bringing some PDSA ideas to me, which is exciting. So the ownership of the roles they have, and the big thing that was exciting to me as I became aware of Deming is joy in work. That's a big tenet for our team, and the more that we can instill in them the ability to bring ideas forward and try these things in small areas and not themselves be afraid to fail. So my hope is as they see us exposing ourselves to Forbes, they will see we're going to show some of our challenges and how do we make those challenges opportunities, and then hopefully internally make them more willing to bring more PDSAs to the forefront of, hey, here's an issue I'm struggling with individually within the organization. How can we bring this forward and make it better for everyone?
I want to open this up if you guys have questions. I got plenty. I could go all day, but if there's anything in particular you guys would like to know, please don't hesitate. Raise your hand, jump in. Let us hear from you. All right, if you're not ready yet, be thinking, please. Let me ask Fred. One of the interesting things about the posts that you put up at the Times was that for you, it wasn't just a matter of the day-to-day business of doing your work, getting paid for it, organizing your employees. You personally wrote about your personal struggle to figure out, really, to some extent, why you were in business in the first place. How did you get to that point? What was it that led you to question why you were doing what you were doing?
My wife. I wasn't happy at work. I had been in business since I was 15, and things get convoluted. You know, you do anything for 30 years, and all of us are going to wake up someday and wonder what city we're in, and that's kind of the experience, and so it's the cumulative effect of family, kids, business, and so for me it was, this is not fun, and I'm mid-50s. I'm thinking, you know, this can't be good for my health. I'm going from one crisis to the next in my life, and this is just a rotten way to be. And I'm generally a fairly happy fellow. It wasn't that it was that, but the reality is there was really no meaning for what I was doing. And fortunately, my wife had suggested I take a course for presidents at Loren, and then that brought those things that put me around people that were like me. But there was no roadmap there, but yet I felt a little bit better at that point. And then again, my whole I never, again, might seem awkward, I never thought people would work for me that I would be responsible for, that I would have to manage their health care, retirement, and those sorts of things. I didn't start out with a grand plan to build a business with 25 employees. I was just working through life, doing what I did, kept it small. I've been in a lot of little businesses, owned some real estate, managed that with just a couple of people in subs. And then as I started growing, and then people were relying on me, and then things got complicated, and half your employees' lives are like a Jerry Springer show, and then you get to be a part of that. Isn't that fun? Yeah. And then you get to be their banker, and and then eventually, then the crisis start happening at work where, you know, OSHA shows up. Did you do that? And did you do that? No. And it can become overwhelming. So I wasn't really happy, and I didn't have any meaning in life. And again, life was still good, but I can leave this and do something else, and I didn't want to do that. I have unfinished business, and it's a great thing to own a business and to run a business and to manage people. But it's probably the hardest aspect of anything I did. And so the Deming, coming in touch with the Deming methods was really a gift. And so when I would hire consultants to come in and talk to me, they would say, oh, hire a board of advisors. And it's like, okay. So then, but that didn't address what was going on in my plant and the quality issues we were having and the personnel issues and the health and safety. So there was no holistic approach to hiring a board. I guess I could have, and if I would have been lucky, someone would have been able to say, here, do this, 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 and this. With the Deming, it's the psychological piece of running a business. I don't know if you all probably have thought of that, but I sure didn't think of that. I really didn't ever think about what is that guy really showing up here for. You know, I'm too busy trying to run a company. And yet, the psychological piece of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, you know, what is he really showing up here for? Well, he wants to be thanked. He wants to be appreciated. He wants to make a difference. And he wants to be paid fairly. Well, we were paying fairly, and I say thank you enough. I buy donuts every Friday. That's a good thing, right? Yeah. All right. I'm the kind of person, and I hope we all are, that wants to have meaning and wants to have understanding. I like to know how things work. And so now now that I go in and I realize, okay, well, there's a piece to this. You know, I've got to think in these terms, and it's helpful to think in these terms. And the theory of knowledge. I'm a plating company from the Midwest. We're not very sophisticated. And so when you talk about knowledge and the theory of knowledge, that's a great thing to bring a guy with a GED in and have a PDSA with them and develop critical thinking skills. And so as I've seen these folks develop and grow, now it's more meaningful. It's like, hey, and I find when I'm doing these things, I'm looking for answers too. I'm not command and controlling, trying to figure things out. I'm actually saying, what is the best way to rack these parts or that sort of thing? And so it's brought more meaning to come from where I was to where I am.
You know, I mentioned how business owners tend to run away from the idea of being told how to run their business by journalists. It's also been my observation that many business owners run away from being told how to run their business by academics. I'm curious, you seem to have embraced this pretty easily, pretty quickly. How? Why?
I guess it made sense from a standpoint of some of the key tenets were things that were important to us at the outset. The joy and work piece being number one, with us being in the helping people business. That part jumped out at me right away. But the other components of the Deming method we didn't have in our business. So it's like, how can we use this system, this method, to allow expansion of joy and work? So that was the piece that jumped out at me, and I hadn't really seen that in other things I've studied, other methods we'd looked at as far as how do we wrap our head around. We'd been in business for 13 years, roughly, when I met Kelly. How do we put a system in place to go about this in a methodical way so that we can expand joy in work for our team members. They can go work at a big system somewhere else, and why would they want to come to work for us? To make a difference for individuals' lives and have joy in that. So that piece is what jumped out at me. It's the first thing I read that jumped out at me in the book. How can we go about this in a systematic way? It made sense to me. As Fred and I were talking earlier, it seems easy when I was sitting in the seminar, but the constancy of purpose becomes at the forefront, because you really have to keep working at this process. But it's fun. You see little changes, you see some big changes, you see challenges, but you have a way to go about working the challenges. I don't feel like we're in a crisis mode. Some of the things that have happened in the last couple years prior to being exposed to Deming would have been a crisis for me. To Fred's point, there would be a lot of high stress. Now when things happen, I have a construct to work within, a way to go about solving the problems, and I don't go home with my hair on fire. So my wife appreciates that, and my boys do. To Fred's point, the family was one of the big motivators for me too, is how do I get my hands around the business rather than the business having its hands around me. So I guess the focus of the joy of work, the purpose, really spoke to me of how can I use the entire Deming philosophy to allow for joy in work for myself and for the team members, which also allows for the product that we offer to allow joy for the outcome of the clients.
I think I saw a hand go up back here.
Do you share the blogs with your employees when it comes out at the time?
Yeah, we've taken pictures together, but do I actually pull the blog out and read it with them? No, I don't really like to promote myself, and so they're aware of it. They think it's cool, and I certainly made them aware of it. But they weren't really interested, and I was okay with that. Yeah, obviously it's there for the reading and all that, but no, it's not that big a deal. It's just another component of what we do, and it was really great, by the way. I've thanked Loren before, but
Thank you.
yay.
Please.
If you were introduced to Dr. Deming's philosophy earlier in your lives, before going into business, what would you have done differently?
The question is, if you had been introduced to Dr. Deming's theories earlier in your life, how might things have been different?
I think you have to be receptive to them. But my kids will go to Deming seminars. It's just a good foundation. It's for business. So I think it would have helped. But again, hearing them and putting them into practice is one thing. But it would have been nice to hear them. Again, my philosophy on business was always ready, fire, aim. and as I've gotten older, that's not really working too well. So my kids, they're putting on an intensive Deming Management Method seminar in Columbus, and my kids are not probably going to be able to make it due to their schedules, but they will all attend these things just for the exposure to it. It's a brilliant system.
I think for me it would have been a lot less stressful process, but I think we would have been much further down the road as far as put out a lot of fires, didn't learn from a lot of those fires, so a lot of unnecessary stress and experiences that we didn't really learn from because we didn't have a confine of how do we take that information and learn from it. I wish I would have started on the process earlier from a family standpoint. It really has changed how I look at the school process with my kids and grades, and not to get too off tangent, but I would have liked to have learned more about this process when the kids were even a little bit younger. They're only 9 and 11 now, but it's never too early.
I don't think it's too late, though.
It's never too late.
One of the things that I think is really neat is the idea of leading with compassion. And whether it's leading your employees with compassion or leading a customer through a payment process is really incredible. In fact, what it shows is that if you've done the work on the front and built a relationship and hired the right people that are able to self-evaluate and evaluate a system, and you lead them with compassion, that they will truly follow you in earnest.
Questions? Please.
Fred, one of the things that I noticed when you went to the 2.5-day seminar that I was there was that you also brought some other people from your team with you. And, you know, I'm always curious because I happen to be sitting right next to your team, and I remember everybody kind of sitting around and looking in the beginning like, what is going on here? And then as we went through the exercises, it was really fascinating to watch how you started working together over the next couple days. And I'm kind of interested, what made you decide to bring people from your team rather than just you? And how did they feel about it as that seminar progressed and then finished?
The reason that I brought them was I felt this would have an opportunity to influence my thinking. And the more people that I can have the same influence with, the better. So, and as a company, I think that you need to take a certain amount of your budget and educate your people. And whether that's sending them out to take Excel classes or anything. So that education is a key component. And so in our group, it really doesn't matter whether you have a GED or whatever. You can still come to events like this and learn. So that's why we brought them. And so what was the impact? Well, we started doing PDSAs pretty much immediately thereafter. And again, somebody's got to manage the system. And that was we really didn't have robust systems in place. In fact, we had broken down systems. So that was probably 1.5 years ago. And but as we've grown and developed, do they talk about it? No. But I hear the word PDSA a lot, and there has been a cultural shift at our company, a true cultural shift, and it really starts with me. I'm the owner, and so I have to be willing to sit down and use these tools, and we really do. And I think that's what. So now there's another one coming up, and we're going to send at least 4 people to that. Again, I think anybody that runs a business, no matter what level of employees you have to offer continuing ed. And again, if a guy doesn't know how to run a computer, send him to the local college and pay for a night class and for him to learn how, and just get him in the habit of learning, because in a business, it's always going to be different. And so that's part of the reason we make them go is to get them in the learning mode.
Please.
It's very refreshing to hear your focus on constancy of purpose and culture. And then you switch on the TV and look at the Shark Tank. And then Mr. Wonderful say, I don't care what business is, I just want to make money. I would love to hear comments, insights from both of you as entrepreneurs, that some advice for the other entrepreneurs, that how critical is making money a part of the constancy of purpose?
How critical is it? I guess it hasn't been for me, going into business and the way we're approaching it hasn't been about money. Obviously, you have to have profit to keep the lights on, but that hasn't been the driving force. And that's what's motivating to the rest of the team, is we're there for the outcomes we're going after for the individual. So it is frustrating when you see, they are interesting to watch from time to time, Shark Tank and what's the other one on CNBC? Anyway. The Profit. But yeah, it's from a standpoint of passion, constancy of purpose, I think having true meaning at the end of the day as to why you're there, and the employees pick up on that pretty quickly, has been my experience. So if you don't have that internal intrinsic motivation of why are we all here, that's been a powerful eye-opener. We never did bonuses, pay for performance, that type of thing. It just didn't seem right. I didn't know why at the time. Now I have a better understanding of why that doesn't work. But that's the intrinsic motivation for me as to why are we all showing up every day. Money wasn't a motivator. It's certainly nice to have success, and the system allows for, in our industry, we have to be extremely efficient, especially with our lower reimbursement rate. So we have to have a real purpose and process behind what we do to stay in business. But I think employees pick up on it pretty quick if you're there just to grab a little extra profit, and motivation goes down pretty quickly. So that would be my quick answer to your question.
What I do is, you've probably heard me compare my company to the company with 300 employees. So that's my measurement tool. And so I compete with them. Their revenues are 100 times ours or whatever. So as Dr. Deming says, don't make buggies in the car eras. And so I give myself ample room to compete, and money is important in our business. Money follows success. Success follows money. And so I always have my sights on bigger, more successful companies. You must study your competitors, you must know what they do, and you must compare yourself to them. So when we look at these bigger companies, and then we say, okay, well, their revenues are this, this, and this. Okay, here are their key customers. These are the industries they're in. I know that if I go and get into those industries, they've already worked the pricing out for me. They have bigger structures, they get paid more, so that's a very safe route for me. And then if I go out there and I chip off their business, which is really my model, then I'm going to be successful. And we have, and but it's never been about money. But I must be in industries where there is money. I don't know if that makes sense. And that's how we model what we do.
I think we have to wrap it up here. We went fast. Thank you very much.
Too fast.
So for those of you who follow the Deming Institute on Twitter, as soon as Kelly gets his act together and we start publishing the next round of blogs, we will tweet out about that, so you can see what Travis is up to on his business, and we'll be bringing Fred back from time to time as well for updates. So thank you very much, Loren.
Thank you. I'd just like to say, these guys make it sound like it's an obvious decision to share their struggles, their journey, and I can assure you it's not obvious to everybody who sits in their seats, and I just really appreciate it, and I think the readers do too.
Thank you.
Thank you.